involves an interface matrix that is on the Adore side that literally links the space-time locations, and they link directly through Earth. Earth was the main full-on link, where there's other gates that from here that linked through to there, but not a full-on link. This one did, and that's why Earth has been under attack for a long time, since the MNT rescue mission was set. So this is what it should look like. We should have, if this is Earth and North, that should be Earth North. And, North, South, East, and West, they should align. That would allow the natural Illurian chambers between them to open to each other, so Earth could progressively restore its grids and get its own ability to light its crystal body back again. But that is not the arrangement that is happening right now. Next one, please. In a natural solar system, you'd have a couple of things. First of all, you'd have the Yanyun flows. These are the natural flows, not the ones that look like an apple. We call it the poison apple magnetic grids that are formed by the Metatronic science. This is the natural one, where it looks more like a butterfly because it has its rod open. It has a front current going this way. It has its vector going this way as well, and it has its vertical vector, where the other one actually closes these rods. So you end up with an apple shape instead, and it tilts the whole thing over at the 23.5 degree thing. So just because something appears in nature does not mean it's natural. Our pole tilt, the magnetic pole tilt on this planet, is not natural. The fact that we have the precession of the equinoxes is not natural. The ecliptic is not natural. These are configurations or the result of massive use of black hole technology in this matrix, and that was done during the Atlantean period, several periods of the Atlantean periods. So we are living the end result of that here. A natural system would look like this. It would have a regular shaped Cathara grid with the right proportions. It would have its number 1 on the bottom, its number 12 on the top. 12 would be north. This would go south. And this would be the natural alignment. Have a natural radio body structure, natural Merkabah structure on its natural vertical axis. It would also have these. And these become key because it is through messing with these, which are the lotus arc sets. They are core flow sets that circulate the energy through the light body structure, and that they actually phase when they're natural. They phase, they're naturally, when they're relaxed, at 45 degrees, running through these gates, right? Because these are gate systems when you're looking at this in terms of planets or stars. They would phase up, the arcs phase up, and they're actually moving the light body cells, so the cells come together and spark, and then they would send sparks down the central vertical column. Same thing happens on the bottom. So in the Cathara 2 technologies, 2 and 3, when we were doing the lotus arc sets, we were getting those arcs moving again while we still could, because on this planet they have been hijacked, and they had been first partially split, where they were reduced in quantum, so they didn't have enough quantum to shift into their natural breathing, because that's part of the breathing process of making sparks, and then the sparks come in as flow, and then that creates a backflow to source, and then you get the backflow return. So it's part of the natural circulation system. This is what was mutated into what's called the bloom of doom, or the daisy of death, or the flower of artificial life, because when you change this into something else, you'll see in a little bit, it changes, first of all, the proportions of the Cathara grid, which changes all of the mathematical relationships between angular rotation of particle spin and polarity and all sorts of things. It also creates what should be a sphere turns into a bulging thing, where it's flat on the poles and bulges at the equatorial poles, just like our planet. Right? Natural systems would have all of their their top, their number 12 Cathara centers, they would be up, and they would have natural arcs of energy that flow and circulate between the verticals, and also as they spin, their rods would be open and sending energy, communicating energy between each other, between the suns and also between each other, and it would be part of the natural larger circulatory system of a living system. This is part of the natural solar symbiosis cycle that we've talked about. A person living on a living planet, their own fields would work in the same way, and they would bring in the natural radiation currents, the light currents, and the Rasha currents, the dark matter currents, and they would use them to synthesize hydrolase conversion. They would not need to eat things outside of themselves like vampires. We have all been turned into vampires just trying to live on this planet. We have to eat stuff outside of ourselves in order, because we just can't breathe. We can't just bring light in and send light back, because that's what it's about. It's about the electromagnetic radiation. That used to be our main diet. Isn't anymore, but we're moving back toward that direction. Next one, please. And if I'm talking really fast, it's because there's still a lot to go. Now, in a natural system, We don't have a lot of words on this because they just gave us these. I got these done after the last 12 tribes. I got part of this done during it and some other parts of it done after it, just in time to get on the plane to come to Holland. So this is showing you is the natural Cathara grid structure, right? Each one of these Cathara centers is actually a central galactic sun. So when we talk about a universal Ekaveka system, science here, when they point at the M31 galaxy, all right, that they're calling a galaxy what we are calling a universal Veka, or Ekaveka system, right? With the M31, what you're seeing is the Veka quadrant. There's other things connected to that, and I don't know what they are, if you can see them or not. But we're seeing the visible from here part of the Andromeda system that was our original set of 12 gates, where we had Lyra at the top and went all the way down to Theta at the bottom at gate 1. The natural systems, you would have this as the universal Veka system that would be connected to the Eka by its 12 gate, and then there would be 2 more going that way, and 1 primal light field up there and 1 over there, an Eka set, right? Eka Veka set. And each of these aren't just little invisible balls that hang in the sky. They would be suns, and around them there would be entire galaxies that would orbit around them, each spinning. And their start spin position would be this way. So they would spin in synchronization. Each would have specific type of mass that would keep the spins all synchronized. And there would be expansion and contraction, natural breathing cycles within all of them. And when we start looking at this in terms of the gate systems that go in the interface between the Milky Way and the Aquiel matrix and the Andromeda M31 matrix, Eartha would be in this position, in the 3 position. And it is the center sun of its galactic cluster. So it is the 3 gate. And that means it is actually the center star in what is a galaxy within a larger universal structure. However, this larger universal structure is what science here refers to as a galaxy, the M31 galaxy. Next one, please. And these are all the shields that spin, right? Lots to put on that graph. Now, this is where some basic things become important. This was the original structure of our Ekaveka system in our Ekaveka system's PCM, Particum Universe Quadrant, in the Andromeda system. The Andromeda system is actually called the Aqueous matrix, and Andromeda was a star cluster within, or a small galaxy within that larger Aqueous matrix. And this was the Andromeda system here. The small cluster was the galaxy here, where this is the Aqueous matrix, the Aqueous universe. And at the center here, there was a star. It was one of the central stars that were of the lock stars. That was called Proteus. It was the density 3 shields at the center of the density 3 shield. They haven't told us yet, but these are very significant in the natural phase cycles of birthing universes and star births and stuff like that. But they're just starting to show us this information. But this is where Proteus was in the density 3 Rajna It also had its own galaxy, and I think what these do is any of the lock ones interface directly, but it's like literally a galaxy that would have a shield that would run this way on each of them. The interfaces directly with the Adore system. So they might, all right. They're ones where they're actually open, which means they would be Richete systems. So they are connected directly into the Richete matrix. Where the others have a polarity, there will be a matching one, an adjugate, over on the Adore side, but they are not open to each other as their natural state of being. They would only open on occasion when they cycle through their time cycles. There are names, and this is why they gave us this for the Tribes 8 class, was because down here, can you move this up a little, honey, please? Thank you. Down here, the 12 galactic, what are called Jaya suns, these are called the Jaya suns of the Equinos universe are, and here are the names of them. And some of them are very close to what they became as they came down here. We had the Antaeus. This is connected, I'm sure, to Antares. They had the Acelon, and I think that's connected to something, and I forget what it is. Then there's Eartha, and of course that one's the one that's connected to Earth. They had Sala Mea. They had Alcaeus Intara, This became what the remnant of it in the Fall system became Alcyone. All right, the main star in the Pleiades. All right. Now this is Salicera. So when we were using the Salicera chambers, it was these chambers that we were moving through in our journey in order to get back in to this matrix. So we could go from this matrix through its central gates. Thank you. Didn't know that either. That just came through its central gates into the Richete cosmic memory matrix, because those central gates are connected to that directly. I just learned something too. So these are the other names of them. You have Itura, you have Oshina. This became, I believe, the Orion system is fallen out of this one. So all of these have a portion of themselves that went into the Milky Way fall. It isn't called the Milky Way. It's Milky, all right. It's a mess because stuff got blown all over the place when the Proteus star was attacked, and that's a core star between the two, so it affected both sides. And part of it is still there and functions, but part of it did become the thing that is at the core of the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. It formed the Milky Way galaxy by literally pulling portions of the star clusters from all these systems down in to form an artificial galactic template. Then other things were spliced into it as well that weren't even from this system, where it's been feeding off various systems through the piece of Proteus that is in the center beyond the point where Sagittarius A star is. The Oberon system was up here someplace around the Andromeda galaxy. I think it was in around the 8. It was the 8 galaxy. And a part of that got pulled in to become the Oberon system instead of the Oberon system. And then you look at Star Wars and stuff. I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh. Right? Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Seriously. You will find stuff like this in the language all over the place. It's really bizarre. Right? We've been noticing that for the whole time the work on this. Some of them are just really funny. All right, the Eka sun from which the Equinos universe was born. So there is a central sun in the Eka part that would be where the 12 gate connects to, was called Procida. All right. So this whole matrix, the M31 matrix, was birthed through a central sun, Eka sun, that was called Procida, and that's where we end up with Proteus, was its Rajna sun there. It's let's see, what do they call these guys? They call these something else over here. All right. Do we have the name of those? What are the name of these guys? It's up here on this one. I think it's down here on the other one. All right, here we go. Can I see this for a minute, honey, please? I will read this. This stuff is worth reading. All right. Each universe, or Vecca quadrant, that was after that, but contains a density 2 universal central sun called a Vecca Sida, or seed atom sun, that is born of the Eka suns, which would be of the larger Eka central cluster. The Vecca Sida core is the first sun galaxy from which the universe is born. Each universe also has a set of 4 primary density sun galaxies, and density sun galaxies, their center suns are called Vecca or Jaya suns. So the center suns are the ones that are running in here, the set of 4 of them. They're not including this one because that is the big central sun. So they're including as the Jaya suns. This is pronounced Jaya, and then you have the 12 Jayas, and you have the Jaya. This is where all the stuff about Gaia comes from. All right. This is why they try to explain to us that on the density 3 level, we had Earth, then Terra on density 2, and then Gaia on density 3. That was a very easy way to put something very complex. It was actually the Jaya sun, the density 3 Jaya sun, excuse me, which was called Proteus. A piece of Proteus ended up at the core of the Milky Way. A piece of it ended up as the star that is called Procyon in the Canis Minor system, I believe, and I think they call it a lone star because it's the only thing that actually qualifies as a star with other stuff. There's other stuff in the system, but that is like one of the few things that qualify as an actual star. And another part of it became, what do they call it? Polaris. And that became Polaris, our North Star. It's being used to plug us in to the center. So it's like all connected into the more local portions of the distortions in the grids here. So this was just the beginning of showing us something huge, basically. Fortunately, we knew at least about Cathara grids and how they work as gates, or it would have been hopeless trying to explain this. So we had, these are called the Jaya suns. There are 4 of them with this lock, right? Yeah, so you have the one that goes to the ethos grids, right? The density 1, the density 3, and the density 4. That would be the Mahadra lock, the Iyumbi lock, the Rashna lock, and the Adrana lock. They are the Jaya suns. And the one in the center is, what is that called? That is the one that is called the Vekasita, I believe. Yeah. Or, wait a minute. Yeah, these are the 4, and that is the 1. So that is the one, the first sun, out of which the rest were born. So the Azure sun is the one at the center, and that is not considered one of the Jaya suns. That is a Vekasita sun, which seeded the Veka. So that is how the structure works there. These are the tones that we will be using to finish the activations with the iridonis. Even if people have left, they will still get them because the shield is running them. But it will be more, you will get a stronger activation of the currents coming in from the Rishate matrix by using them and opening the Rasha body to help bring in the Rasha levels of them as well. So the tones you've been given have to do with this. There's a particular way to use them, where first we call on the original encryptions of the gate systems that are coded somewhere in. We still have pieces of DNA that are connected to these directly, particularly the people who were the keepers of the crystal core. All right, you guys especially would have the majority of these tones, but right now they would be like, say, shredded musical notes laying in your junk DNA. This will actually assist in those pieces reassembling themselves when you use these tones. So it brings the frequencies in stronger and helps the DNA to repair more quickly, as well as help the rest of the light body and the spirit body to activate in its natural way. So we use those tones. Next one, please. This is the gate system of what is called the Aquiel matrix, or the Aurora Aquiel matrix, the Aurora field that we introduced first, actually way back in Shasta, and I think that was 2006. Feels like a million years ago. But these systems, they are structured in the same way. They are the Adore side of the M31 natural Aquinas galaxy, or universe, or Veka system. So these guys interface directly, and this is showing you the interface with the gates. Their numbers match up, right? Where you have the Andromeda, the AN gates refer to Andromeda just because it's the easy way, or it is the Aquinas, but Andromeda works. You have the Andromeda gates, and then the Aquiel gates, or the A gates, the Aurora gates, the Aquiel gates, and they line up 3 to 3, 6 to 6, 8 to 8. That's the natural structure, and they line up. Next one, please. And here are the tones for those two. We're going to go over those tones at the end because it's part of the last part of the techniques to use. Now, what happened in this system has to do with all this stuff we've been talking about for a number of years. And the formation from over here, if this is the entire Akasha or Yukatharista body on the Ettore side, there's a system over here in this we're in Akasha A quadrant, or whatever they call them, corridor, I think they call them. And we are over here. There is a progressive black hole matrix set up, or wormhole matrix set up linking these two. And it progressively, the ones over here in the fall system, had taken advantage of the fact that they were able to force Proteus into splitting and falling to form the original Abaddon sun, because it was the ones from over there that started it. And they've progressively been linking our natural gate systems, first tilting the natural gate structure, and then plugging our gates in to theirs over there in the fall system, and creating what is called the black cube matrix. I won't even go any further on that one right here, but think about that. It is plugged in through various places, like the Iyumbi lock in our system, and one of the places that anchors in happens to be in Mecca. And all of the stories that people have been fed here are really sad. People are being used here. There's nothing wrong with Christianity. There's nothing wrong with Muslimism. There's nothing wrong with any of the belief systems that people have here, except they're not complete. They don't tell the whole story. It's not the Muslim people's fault that something a long time ago plugged something in over there. All right? But this is what was plugged in over there and in a whole bunch of other places, like here. And this is what we'll see at the end, where the 666 configuration that this ended up being all about. 666 has to do with these. We'll see these a little bit bigger so you can read the names of them when we move on a little bit further. And this was old stuff. We were trying to explain what it did to the light body structure and all that. And this has to do with how certain of them interface into our, these were early graphs of how they interface into our solar plane. And these are showing it on our Eka-Veka system, how they actually went into our parallel system as well, our parallel pKa Veka, and here we are in the PCM Veka. And it's basically caused, at this point, the fall of our Eka-Veka system. Next one, please. This shows them a little closer. Now, the 666 configuration has to do with a series of gates that you'll see in a minute, but they're plugged into one that's in the 6th position and carries the 6th encryption over in the fall side of the WISA DEC matrix. And that particular fall system is referred to as the Yod-He-Vod-He system. It has to do with a host attempt that was made called the Eye of Yahweh. And the Eye of Yahweh failed, and the fall of Metatron was part of the result of that. And this became the Yod-He-Vod-He or Yahweh matrix. And the 6th star in that system its encryption in its name is Apollyon. And that connects into, in our system, in our phantom system, because it's partly phantom, which means partly fallen, but not fully fallen yet, is the Milky Way system. And that plugs into 6 over here, actually plugs into 2 of them. One is the Sirius B that science sees up there that is a burned out star, a white dwarf, and Procyon. So there's a 666 configuration that happens with these, and there's also another one involved that we'll look at it in a different way to be able to see what's interfacing. So what we're going to look at is how the gates of our natural gate structure, this mess, and which is numbered this way, look at the difference between, first of all, our Cathar grid is tilted because of the pull that they're having on us, but it's not nearly as bad as where they're going. They're creating this type of Cathar grid system, completely different proportions, unnatural proportions. It is the proportions, this is not a great diagram of it, but it's meant to create what is called the seed of Metatron, and organize star clusters in a specific way that they will create the Metatronic spirals or the Fibonacci spirals that can attach to other things and suck energy from them in order to sustain themselves. So all of this is about the Metatronic science, and that is connected into larger sciences that have to do with time loop technologies, not just wormhole technologies. Next one, please. This one and that one go together. We are here, wherever that is. Right? This is a picture of some artist's rendition or something. It was in some tabloid, but it caught my eye, and I wanted to save that for some reason. I didn't know why. And then with the next graph, they go together. I know why. Can we see the next one, please? And then I'll help align that, because that's a bit of a challenge. Okay, this, before we line it with that, what this is showing you for the first time is the Procyon matrix. The Procyon, because it is the fallen part of Proteus, and the Proteus, which was the name of our Rajna star in Rajna Jaya star in the Andromeda M31 matrix. Now, we have various sets of gates. Can we pull this up a little bit so I can see? I think they're on the bottom here. Yeah, they'll tell you what gates are. We have, if I can read, M gates that are Milky Way galactic, the Milky Way galaxy gates that are part of the Abaddon, which is what the encryption became as one of the parts of Proteus that fell, that's at the center. So the Milky Way that's connected into the Abaddon black hole system. The M gates are the ones that correspond to stars and grids that are connected into there. Then we have P gates. These are phantom fallen M gates, which means they're reversed, but they're still on this side and have not been pulled in yet. Then we have F gates. These are fallen parts of Milky Way M gates in the Procyon Abaddon black hole system, Oberon Sagittarius A system. So there are layers. The center layers of these would correspond with the Abaddon matrix that's deeper down in than Sagittarius A is. And then you would have these that correspond with the Oberon matrix, which is the outer part of the Sagittarius A part of the Procyon system. But together, they are the Procyon system. They were like a yak when Proteus fell. I don't know why they call it Procyon, but that is the name of it. It's the encryption it bears, probably. So it used to be Proteus, and that became Procyon, Procyon, Polaris, which then got reversed to become Polaris, which is our North Star, and it has another name, but it's actually Polaris was the piece that came off Proteus originally. So this is showing these gate interfaces. Our gates, these are the fallen Wysidek reverse encryption Metatronic gates that are in the Yote-Vote black hole. And that is in the Wysidek matrix. And they're the ones that these gates plug in with. And if you notice, we have R11. Now, we're at the bottom of the Cathara grid, theoretically speaking. But we've got R11 here. We've got R10. These are their stars, the reverse matrix stars in their hole. Right? We've got R9, R8, R7, R6, R5, R4, R3, R2, R1. Their 1 is on top. Their 11 is down the bottom. They don't yet have a 12, but what they have in replace of it up on the other end is the fallen Eye of Yahweh, which was it's a refraction lens that was attempting to make a host to parts of fallen systems, and they completely took it over and made the whole thing fall. So they plugged in what was the fall of Proteus pieces here into. Later, they plugged it into, because that was 350 billion years ago. This was about 150 billion years ago when they caused the fall of the Eye of Yahweh and turned it into a wormhole, the Arimathea wormhole. And this is all the stories of Joseph of Arimathea and the Jeshua and Jesus crew were all coming in through here. And we attempted to try to assist them. And we had done, back in the Christ period and even before, we had tried to assist some of their races in getting their codes back so they could pull themselves out of this. And many of them just turned on us. Now, the ones on this planet that really, really irk me sometimes is these are part of the Melchizedeks. They're called the Alpha Omega Order. They're one of the main groups that run it. You have here, I believe the stack is, we'll see these up closer in a minute, but what you have here are Omega, or Alpha and Omega Centauri. That connects up into Alcyone and Tiamat, going up into density 2. So there's a stack of them here, and Procyon is up here as well. So this knot is actually holding this together. What this does is it has pulled part of the natural arc systems this should be, first of all, on a vertical, right? And if you were looking at a normal Cathara grid, you would look at it on the vertical unless there was a reason to look at it at a tilt. This is tilted because it is tilted from where it should be vertical. Now, what it has done is split the natural arcs sets that should be at 45 degrees on the vertical. It has split them and pulled them into 60 degree from the top. If this is 45 degrees from the top, the natural one, it split part of it and put it at 60 degrees. What it formed is the shape that is known as the bloom of doom, or the daisy of death, or the flower of artificial light and life. And that whole paradigm is about this, and it's coming from here. It is a broadcast station. It is the ones who are the main controllers in the hibernation zones that are right there in our atmosphere. They create our ozone layer. Thank you. You turned off our coronosphere. I guess we need one. You know, that kind of thing. If you have a coronosphere, there's a biome that forms underneath the coronosphere that you can live in, particularly if you're breatharian, and you don't need to have an ozone layer to protect you from the light coming from the sun, because there's a natural exchange of radiation in a solar symbiosis cycle where you don't get fried by radiation in the same way. So there are stars out there, science has no idea, that yes, at certain angular rotation of particle spin, there are indeed biological life forms all over the place. It would be really scary if you were a scientist and you woke up one morning and everybody decided to turn their coronaspheres off just for a little while so they could see them all and wave. Right? There's life in the universe. No kidding. Right? Anyway, this is showing the interface systems between the F gates, which are the fallen portions of Milky Way gates that are in the Procyon Abaddon matrix. They have fallen. They are locked in to a gridlock with the star systems in the Wysidek matrix, the Yoti-Voti fallen matrix. And then you have the The M gates, these are still, I believe, Milky Way gates that are in the Abaddon part. They're linked into the Abaddon part. The Abaddon parts are actually creating the tension. These are actually stars, pieces of stars and stars, that are out there holding the energy fields that are making the arcs stay split, to literally hold that configuration, unnatural configuration of energy movement that looks like the daisy of death. And because it is the daisy of death, and that's why we call it that. I won't even dignify it by calling it anything less. Anyway, this whole system is what our galaxy is doing. Now, if we took that galaxy thing, honey, you know the picture with the galaxy on it? The picture with the what, sweetheart? Am I boring you? I'm not boring you. You're exhausted, I know, sweetheart. So, yeah, I know. No, I want, see that one? This goes on top of it. The one, yeah. And it's a little bit tricky. You got to line up. See, there's a very faint, what could be the shield, the rod. There's a couple dots, and if you line that up and try to point Earth over in this direction by that M3, it'll give you an idea. Yeah, keep moving Earth that way. Moving Earth that way. Not up, just that way. See, this up here, right? Yeah, I had fun trying to do that too, because this is so light it's hard to see it. But that is the line that would line up, I believe, with here. But if you get it at a certain angle and it's actually a little bit too big for the configuration, it would actually show. And this is like here we are at Earth system out in one of the arms, the outer arms of the Milky Way. It actually fits quite well as far as showing the tilt, except that's not how. Yeah, we've got it up there somewhere. Anyway, the light spot that's the center goes at the center, right? And then it's just, let me play with that for a minute, because you can really see it. This is not just you. It was me. It took me a while to figure that one out. Excuse me. Next one. Excuse me. Thank you. This is a very rough but close-up of the guts of the Proteac matrix, where it's showing the Alpha and Omega Centauri. They're the Centauris, and that's where the Alpha Omega order of Melchizedek's, their fallen Melchizedek's, is actually coming from. Hate to tell them, sorry guys, but people that are following the paradigms, they're being talked to by people like the Thoth matrix, like the Paracletes in the sky, which are people who are broadcasting to channels that are from this matrix in order to help them spin their Merkabahs just so we can make sure that the Metatronic grids activate here during the stellar activation cycle. And that's exactly what they did. And that's really sad, because when people are being used that way, it's not just the planet that gets hurt, the people get hurt also. And this has been killing us for a long time. So it's like, is it going to make it dead any faster? Probably not. And it actually might make you able to fall down a black hole and still live there as a vampire if you want to, without teeth and without sucking blood. No, you just suck energy off other things. So there's been trickery that has been run here for a long time. But it's not just the New Age movement. It's been going on since Atlantis. The re-legions of the original 12 legions of the Christ that held the sacred teachings, that taught about the natural mechanics of ascension, they have been taken, part of them are still there, part of them have been perverted, they've been turned into control dogmas that control masses of people and make them self-controlling little prisoners, where they teach them certain things about gods that are not true. So everybody lives up to little authority figures and goes and makes sure that the priests and the Illuminati and the hierarchy say it's okay, because everybody's terrified because they can't remember how they got here in the first place or where they're going. And if that didn't work, if that wasn't enough to scare them, they just go in and massacre them, like, do a crusades or something and flatten them, or take over their country like what happened in America. I mean, really. This place has been a war zone all along. Our own history reflects it. But it hasn't been the full responsibility or the fault of the angelic human population. Our actions have contributed to it here in the fact that we were a bit slow on the draw in Atlantis and have not really recovered ever since, because we let certain ones in because we trusted too much, and we also, some of our groups got arrogant and started being influenced a bit too much by their buddies that were of the fallen angelic matrices, and they allowed technologies to be brought here that they never should have allowed as the guardians of this place. And now this is the end result of those very bad choices that were made in Atlantis. Anyway, the sins of our fathers and mothers, Atlantis and Lemuria. So this is just showing how these are like the knot that tie in this matrix and hold it together. And this is where you get your Palladian channels from Alcyone and your Anu channels from Tiamat. And they're pretty quiet over in Procyon because they're doing stuff behind the scenes, actually. And the Alpha Omega Order, they've done wonders. They have teachings at this point in just about every corner. It doesn't matter if they're Christian or if they're New Age metaphysics or if they're Old Age metaphysics. They do beautiful things like miracle courses and all sorts of wonderful, amazing types of texts. And yes, and they have, I won't go any further. No, not here. If you want to know more about those kind of things, that information is in a chart that's in the back, or a chart that runs several pages in small print, that's in the back of the Voyagers Volume 2, second edition book, where it basically names affiliations with what group, what Atlantean king lines, what types of work they do, like who wrote the necromancy, for example, the Satanic Bible, which ones have done these kind of things. So the stuff that we see on bookshelves out there, it's like, ETs don't exist, visitors don't exist. No, right. They just have us write the books. So we can pretend they're not there, and then we can listen to the books and do stuff with ourselves that's hurting ourselves and is killing our planet. Whatever. It wasn't a very fun game. It isn't one. And finally, this story is almost over. 223 years left of gentle evac. That's not such a horrible thing. So it could be worse. It could be going on for another 450 billion. And personally, I'm just sick of the drama. I would really, really just like to go into one of those light, love, and not clueless Christic matrices where you can dance with flowers and hear the air sing, and everybody loves each other and nothing eats each other, and you can swim in the ocean without getting ingested immediately. I mean, just little things that make life more pleasant, right? So I wanted you to see this matrix, because it is this matrix, and particularly the configuration of the 666 sets that are plugged into what used to be an evac station that is here in seating 1. So that was it was 200 million years ago. There was an evac station set up, put in the natural grids here, and it was put in by certain of the Crystal River host groups, the Aquari groups, that were assisting people who were being attacked on parallel Earth in the PKA Vecca in our system. Parallel Earth has already fallen. It fell Wisadrak. But long ago, if you notice in the Amente charts, when we start talking about who was seated where and when, 250 million years ago, first of all, 550 million years ago is when the whole Terra drama happened and it fell. It wasn't until 250 million years ago that anybody seated humans down here at all, because it was such a mess. In the first place they seated them were on parallel, on PKA system, parallel Earth. And if you look at the gap, 250 million years ago, angelic human Turnicium ones were seated there. Then 25 million years ago, they were seated here. Boy, that's an awful long time between seating them on both sides. And there was a reason for that, because they were raided on the other side progressively, and they went after them there. And there were certain periods of time where there was direct intervention, help given by the Aquari races to get the angelic human lineage out, because they were being massacred and destroyed, and trying to preserve some of them. So the gene code, and it's kind of like Noah's Ark, but it didn't float in the same way. It floated in a different way. It floated like a Christ star. But there is a gate link that went into parallel Earth and linked to Earth, because at that time Earth was a bit more stable, even though the angelic humans weren't on here. So they brought them over from parallel to get them out of dangerous way, and that linked into the natural sequences of Crystal River host gates. Now, there were certain points in time, they've been after that one for a long time. It had to be closed down on the parallel Earth side because parallel Earth finally did end up with this gate structure so corrupted that they would have invaded Earth directly from there, and they tried many times, but they didn't. They had to find other creative ways to mess with our Templar. But it is still there, and that is the thing that is activating now that's just off the coast of Amsterdam. And it is because that is there, and what it interfaces with. It interfaces directly with the Aquiel matrix. And that means directly with the Aurora field, the Ascension field, that is the direct link where you can step over the Milky Way and get yourself back into your original matrix. It means that there's potentialities for all sorts of healing, but also for back and forth visitation, and for using, there's other matrices that once upon a time were plugged into that. That was a central one of a host system, an evac host system. So there's an entire set of smaller grids that are plugged into that one. That is why it was a target, the area was a target for certain ones of these guys, and they set up a series where they plugged Apollyon, the 6 from over on the other side, into the Apollyon and the fallen part of Procyon and the fallen part of Sirius B, all which have the 6 encryption. They've plugged them in to this particular area, and it's literally a triangulation that runs between here, Brussels, and Paris, and it's a control matrix that runs things like HARP and other related technologies, and that's the ones that angels don't play up in Alaska. Next one, please. This is showing you just a little more clearly. First of all, there are actually another symbolic meaning of the 666 is there are 3 sets of the bloom of doom, and each of them, they're all 6 points. They all have 6 flowers, flower petals, but they are spaced at the 60 degrees from the central vertical axis as opposed to natural 45. So there's one smaller one in here that connects into the Abaddon matrix, one out here that connects into the Sagittarius A Oberon matrix, both of which are the Procyon matrix, and then there's another one that is on the other side that plugs into the Yowie, the fallen Yowie matrix, and the Wisedek side of the adjacent Akasha's Eka-Veka black hole system. And it's not even a fallen Eka. There are only 2 of their Vekas fell, but their whole Eka didn't. So they're actually part of the Crystal River team that are trying to, for many eons, have been trying to assist the Christic matrices to fixing this and getting it healed. What you're seeing here is all of this transposed over the natural gate structure of Andromeda and where we're supposed to be. Now, what is interesting here is we have one link. The Adore side gates that are the natural adjugate companions to the M31 Andromeda aqueous matrix here, which would be in this configuration. This is showing the interface. Remember, we had the Andromeda gates, and we had the Aurora gates that go to the Aquiel matrix on the Adore side, because the Andromeda one, or the aqueous matrix, this is the Ettore side of it that we're seeing in the Ettore system. This is how these gates interface. This mess here is the Procyon matrix. That is another word for the Milky Way galaxy, and that is connected here. Here's the natural axis, and here is the axis of the host. There are certain places, notice their centers are off as well, where they are literally, even their spheres aren't aligned with each other anymore. We've got this being the natural axis, rod axis of the aqueous matrix and the Aquiel host, and then the one below it and shifted over is where its center is over here, and our natural center should be in here. So this is the Procyon matrix. It's offset, but there is still one gate. If you notice, there are certain gates of this grid, right, the natural ones that are running on the natural verticals, that interface. You've got an interface at 7, right? That's probably what has something to do with why they activated Spanner 7 first. Then there's no interfaces directly with these guys. There's supposed to be one between Sirius B, and they're working on that, reopening that. But Sirius B is kind of like hijacked into this configuration right now. But there's this one. You have the Andromeda 3, Eartha. You have the Aquiel matrix 3, and what do they call it there? I don't remember what they call it there. I'd have to look it up again. It's on your papers, actually, as the aquial matrix number 3. Okay? That is ascension Earth. All right? And it's a space in between, a manifest system that is in between where we are in the Milky Way and the Atori matrix in the Milky in the same Atori system that the Milky Way is in. So it is a way that we can pass through, move through there, and then get back into our natural ascension system. It is the other side, the Atori side, the spirit side, if you want to look at it that way, of our natural matrix. There's one place that fully aligns with all of these configurations, and they are the threes. And that is Earth. And the Earth was put in, the Amenti Rescue Mission was put in not just to help Earth, this solar system, get back to density 2. It was put in to try to assist in finally reaccreting, pulling some of these back out of their alignment. If these had to fall because they were phase locked in already, there were still all these other ones. If they could release this, if they could release the bloom of doom, then they would be able to tilt back the matrix and bring it back into hosted alignment, so it could be brought back in. So literally the Milky Way could be brought back in to its natural Andromeda galaxy. Eventually, the parts of this that don't implode, that don't go down into the hole, get sucked into the other matrix, will eventually implode, and those parts will be able to go back as space dust in the next natural starfire cycle of the aqueous matrix here. And one of the gifts that is happening now is our guys are actually assisting to close that wormhole. So we may not be able to save these stars and these places, but we would be able to stop them from taking the entire thing, including the portions of Earth that won't be able to make it, because there's a good portion of the Earth's matter body and light body that will not be able to make it, because now we have our solar system. The sun is going through its Bardo cycle, so it's going to go back as space dust, and it will take a lot of things with it. And if it goes back after 2047 to 2051 is when Eartha does a natural starfire. That means it disappears for a while. That interface is no longer there. If that happens, that is what's holding Earth and this system, this solar system, stable, so it hasn't already rolled and done drastic things like implode on itself. When that goes, Earth needs assistance, and so does our solar system, just to maintain itself long enough to have a calm black hole fall. So if this is closed, and this is what our guys are working on now, is closing the center of that, closing the Sagittarius A star, and then the Abaddon, if possible. And if not closing those, at least trying to unplug them from our solar system's solar plane. So at least this system can, when it goes, can go in peace. Because the people who won't make it out on host will be able to at least have a period of evolution here where they can have teachings brought back to them that even if you're in a fall matrix, you can still make Christic choices. And you can still use the energy you have left available to make it a pleasant place to be. And they are going to assist as much as they can to not allow this system to be any further sucked into the Yote-Vote matrix. And the Yote-Vote matrix goes under many, many names and many, many teachings, but they're all connected. And one of their most proud examples is using our name, the Melchizedeks. These are not genuine Melchizedeks. They are fallen groups of Melchizedeks that had to do with ones who were involved with the teachings, and some of them were even from our families. Most of them started as the fallen Anu Elohim that were originally Elohi Elohim, but they fell and became involved with the Metatronic stuff. So there's a lot of problems, and they got involved with others where they hybridized, and they have a specialized gene code now that is crossed with the ones from Apollyon. And there's various names for those races, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is just to understand how we over here in this outer arm of the Milky Way galaxy can directly interface with a galaxy that can be seen, but that is 2.2 million light years away. It is this way. It is through the spheres that you don't see. And remember, those spheres are connected through the dark matter templates and through the spirit bodies. So it is just the opposite vector, and they connect directly to each other. So that is where the aurora field is. That is where the host is. That is where we will learn to slide to on our way home to the other matrix. And one of the things we're going to be able to do is slide portions of the shield with us. So portions of this Earth body will have an opportunity to become part of some of the water systems there, where they would appear as islands or masses in islands, maybe even, if there were enough, a continent or two. So, because it is a large system and it has much water. It's very similar to Eartha, which is more water than it is land as far as surface level goes. So there are places for land to rise up that wouldn't knock everything else out of order. Next one, please. Hello. How badly am I doing on time? How badly am I doing on time? Don't even ask. That bad, huh? Okay. Just wanted to show you this quickly. In the natural structure of a galaxy, in our in the natural structure, if you looked at this as our interface with the Aquiel matrix, right? Earth, and that is interfacing directly with the aqueous matrix, that is the Andromeda galaxy that we are from. When the Amenti Rescue mission was put in, it was aligned naturally. Our whole solar plane was aligned with this connection. It used to be funny that the old-time scientists and stuff used to say that Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around Earth. Well, it kind of did. It just doesn't look like that from the outside. There's a whole set of rotational things where Earth was fixed and it would rotate with this entire set, because all these are rotating systems, right? So it would rotate with the natural shield of the Aquiel matrix in relation to the Aquinas Andromeda system. And it held, this was the one place that held at its core the link directly, the direct link into that. And that links directly into, and this is probably why we're able to visit through there, where we can go from here to, through the Aquiel matrix, through into Earth and up through Salicera. It probably links directly in to that center, to the center star that is the Azure star, that links directly in to the Rishaic hull, the hulls of Risha in the larger cosmic matrix. So it's because that link in the first place. But this is why we've been attacked for a long time. This was a natural order of things. I won't go through because it'll take a long time, but there are different planets at this point. What we call the asteroid belt used to be Stargate planet number 5, which was Maldak. Jupiter was number 6. There was one that was called Charon, I believe. Charon with an A, and part of that, called Chiron, is still floating around out someplace, down in here someplace, in the wrong space. It literally shifted. What they did here with the Beast Machine and all of that was done intentionally. It was done to shift this, to actually stretch. They stretched the solar plane and locked it into the Yumbi lock in our system, the Milky Way plane, and we're able to drag this into alignment with the Proteac to try to pull us fully into the Milky Way plane. We're pretty much there, but we still sit. Our solar system still sits at an angle. It is not fully flat and embedded in the same way. It will be, but it isn't yet. So this is the beginning, where it looked like, and what it became was, next one please. Oops. It's caused by this, by the way. There are these lineups of nasty energies that tilt our plane. And there's another one I want to show you what looks like up close on a diagram that looks like the other one but shows this. But this has to do with, out here is where Pluto's orbit is. This is how science shows us where Pluto's orbit is in relation to our solar system. There are all these messed up alignments that are connecting up here. This part up here was Nibiru, right? So there's an orbit here, there's an orbit here that are holding us into alignment. This one's called Clarion. You ever hear the Clarion call? There's another one called Cryon, and on, right? Right. These are all Galactic Federation. All of these things, all of these teachings are coming from these places, from various groups that represent these places. And that's why we're out here and still going on and on and on about, at least, it may not make us the most popular people on the planet, but at least people are still being brought back a choice where they can look at two sets of datum and make a conscious, intelligent decision. And we don't pressure you. You make whatever decision you want. We're here to just share with you what we've been shown and what we've been taught. We choose to believe it's true. It makes too much sense compared to the nonsense that's being taught by the other paradigms. So, anyway, this is what has caused, this is the local part of that larger thing that we showed you that is at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, that is keeping the Milky Way separate from its natural galaxy, which is M31, that they call Andromeda. Next one, please. This is what they did down here. Remember the sun was over here once upon a time? Earth is still over here, and it's quite a bit smaller. This big thing isn't Earth. That is the larger one in the Andromeda system, or in the Aquarius system. And there would be the smaller one there that would be the interface one, the Aurora Earth or Ascension Earth, and then there's our little Earth here, right? Well, it stretched out the plane. It pulled, by using these mechanics of massive scale black hole technologies, wormhole technologies, they were able to literally stretch the natural plane alignment in our solar system, tilt things at various angles, and lock this in to the Iumbi lock. They have something called the Borgia triangulation that runs through from the center of the Milky Way through various other places into the Iumbi lock and then out to two other fall matrices. So they literally hijacked the solar plane, and then they went after Earth directly. And they've done a good job, but it took them a long time anyway. What it did is tilt the entire solar plane in relation to what would have been its natural host plane. It is now aligned with the Milky Way tilt, progressively aligning with the Milky Way tilt. It's given us our illusionary 9-planet structure, and it wiped out number 5 because when it stretched it stretched Earth out into Mars orbit, and it stretched Mars. Well, it had to put it somewhere, so they shattered what was Maldak number 5 to drag Mars and force Mars out into that orbit. And it is a mess. It's fascinating, morbidly fascinating. It's frightening to think that there are criminals this intelligent in the universe. But because this is criminal. I mean, this is just, it is the worst form of spiritual rape of a system that I've seen in a long time. But then again, I can't remember much, so not while I'm down here. So maybe it's not so bad. There might be worse. I hope not. I don't want to know if there is. But this is where we're at now. Anyway, this is our whole plane is a bit tilted. It's not as badly tilted as the whole matrix, but it is going in that direction because this system is going to end up going into the Milky Way black hole. However, that wormhole that it connects it to the other matrix, that can be shut. It is still a black hole system. It will still eventually. It's not going to make it in the host where the whole shield comes back in and can evolve back in naturally into the M31 matrix, but at least it can become a sovereign black hole where it falls onto itself, and then eventually it will run out of steam. And that eventually will be a long time before the entire thing runs out of steam. We got billions of years before that happens, but it will eventually do nova, or supernova actually. And when it does that, it will go back to Partakai units, space dust, and those will eventually ride back on a natural backflow wave of a star-fire cycle back into the Adashi cycles. And there's a thing about the beings and things that have lived in a system. If they get shattered, their shield gets shattered, their memory matrix is shattered. If there is a person or a being or a group who can remember them at their highest, remember their name, their encryption, the image of them, and bring that image back. Once they go through a space dust return, if that image is brought back, that memory is brought back by one who does make the space dust, make the natural Adashi return, they will be able to, they'll still have to do a space dust, but they will be able to reaccrete and regain their memory matrix because somebody remembered and somebody held that encryption for them. And that is one of the things that the Aquiferian shield here is doing for many of the fall matrices here. That way we have codes from all over the place. We're like walking ETs and, all of us, all sorts of different things. It's so we could pull back as much of the memory imprint as we could. So when they do eventually come home, because everything does, one way or the other, right? It's kind of like mommy calls. You will come home. Those currents, the contracting currents going back to source of the Adashi, they will always pull stuff back. But they'll give it time to do what it wants to, and once it finally runs out of quantum and it can't continue having itself spin, it will eventually implode itself from the core out, and then it gets to go home. So we're in the middle of a large story, fortunately eventually ending story, closer than ever to the end of that one. Next one, please. This is what our solar system looks like now, and we're the third rock out from the sun. Right? We've got things tilted at angles that are just fascinating. We've got this one. I think this one is Uranus, and it's tilted these are supposed to be rings. That's supposed to be a shield, but they're actually rings that are running vertically, which means it's literally standing completely upside down. We haven't gone through tracking just how badly, and because what you would find all the angles that they actually needed to tilt things at, to hold the arcs of energy in very specific ways, to keep the proper tension that would have this matrix be strong enough to link into the larger black hole system, so they could hopefully, what they're really hoping to do is pull in the rest of M31, because that would be even more fun as far as they're concerned, and it would give them lots more food. That's not going to be allowed to happen, thanks to the Aquiel matrix on the Adore side that interfaces between us. Next one, please. That's just comparing the two. What originally Earth looked like, or the solar system looked like, when it had 12 planets. Nibiru was the outer one. Pluto was number 10. Charon was number 11. I forget the order in here, but it got stretched. It got messed up. We used to have 5 where the asteroid belt is. It was Maldak. And they were all the gate numbers. They were the natural gate encryptions. And you know what? When you take a planet that is naturally, these planets or what are supposed to be stars, birth out from their central star in a very specific order, just like you have the order of how the light body structure forms and births. And a planet with a 3 encryption that has the amount of quantum energy at its core that goes with the 3 encryption would be naturally in the 3rd orbit. And when you pull one of those, pull a 3rd orbit planet into another orbit, you completely mess up its harmonics and its ability. You completely change its time, its BPR. You change the nature of time. You block part of the energy flow, and that's what's happened here. So we're slowly bringing the three harmonic back into the portions of the grids that can use it, and that has to do with what we're going to be doing, or what we're part of, what the activation we were a part of that is helping us to heal is actually taking place in relation to the 666 configuration of gates that have to do with Amsterdam. And we can move through some of these much faster if we need to at this point, but I want to get to those. Right? That's frightening. Okay. I'm going to... Really? I've been going that long? Hold on a sec. Okay. Time to pull the most important ones. It takes a long time, but at this point, I think I've reduced it to something very, very manageable and easy to do. So I will still get the main points that I wanted to be able to bring to you before I went away and allowed Az to lead you through the raising of the Eridanus. But there's a few more things I would like you to understand about this. I think you get the picture. This is a pretty big picture, right? And fortunately, we learned about the good stuff. And the more we learn about the stuff that's not too nice to know, the more we have been learning about the wonderful stuff, the real ascension teachings, how the whole cycle works at this point. I've never seen anything, not even in the Atlantean period, that explained things this clearly and labeled where things were and those kind of things. There are things that had to be hidden in the Atlantean period because the FA groups would get a hold of it and use it. At this point, there's not a whole lot more they can do. Right? All right, won that round, guys. But there are certain things they cannot stop either, and they cannot stop the gifts of Aquiel and the host that is being run through that matrix. We are opening slide zones, and the slide zones are into Ascension Earth, and it will be a place that is like this, but bigger and nicer, actually, where it'll seem like a more organic Earth, like it might have been before it was scathed by humans and things, we have a lot to look forward to, those who are still on the ascension path. The big trick is making sure you still get there, because a lot of people would like to be on the ascension path. That's why people go to church and stuff. But the churches don't have the teachings anymore, and they don't want to hear it. So we offer the alternative, and hopefully people will take it, because I know we are. And I'll take my chances. If I have to try to bioregenerate myself back into Andromeda, well, then I will, if that's what it takes. It takes what it takes. So this is the mess that on a local level we have. We have the solar system that's messed up. We have our Earth that's messed up. It gives it our what should be a vertical axis. It actually creates this situation of our shield is tilted. It creates the ecliptic. We have this, we call the poison apple magnetic field, blocking the rod, so the rod cannot do its natural things that have to do with hydrolase conversion. So we are locked in. We have our coronosphere. In fact, that's what shuts off the coronosphere. And we have over here, we are like a mini version of the Procyon matrix, black hole. This is what is holding this in place. The Cathara grid a portion of our Cathara grid is bent this way, where it's pulled into that configuration that is the unnatural configuration, characteristic of the bloom of doom, and because it's actually the bloom of doom and the bending of the arcs that creates that. And we still have a portion that is being held through the core, through the aquial matrix, that will allow, even though we're out of alignment, the aurora field, the aquial matrix, will allow for a turning. You can pass through a gate here, and it will align the span gates. It's almost like a revolving door or a tumble lock that, okay, if you want to align 7 with 7, but 7 is here on one and it's over here on the other, it'll actually move. So it'll take you from 7 here, roll you around to where 7 is on the Andromeda side. And that's how the whole matrix of the aquial field works on the spirit side. It was designed to do that, so it would rotate, so it could create this option of realigning. If you couldn't realign the whole system, at least you could realign things passing back in, where they could pass back in on a tilted axis and then be able to be gently pulled back around to where they could go back into their natural angular rotation of particle spin. So we're in the middle of this mess, all sorts of other pieces to it, but you get the idea. Next one, please. Enough said on that, I think. Let's see what's next. I forget what I put next. There's not too many left of these, though, because I want to get to how it affects you. I did want to just show you this one again. We showed this quite a while ago. It compares the natural crystal spiral to the Metatronic spiral, or this spiral that is you have the Fibonacci sequence, and you have what is called the golden mean spiral. And from what I've heard, as it said, that the Fibonacci isn't exactly a golden mean, but it gets closer and closer to the golden mean ratio the more it eats and the larger it expands and gets. This is at the heart of all of the Metatronic teachings, and even if they don't call themselves Metatronic, they're at the heart of the teachings of Thoth, they're at the heart of the teachings of most things out there. Many great mathematicians, many great scientists all think the golden mean is the perfect spiral. Well, it is if you want to create something that's a tube torus that sucks energy out and throws it back in. It regurgitates its own energy over and over, and it sucks energy off other things. Yes, it's very good at doing that. But if you want to have a living spiral where there is inflow and outflow, where there is a gift from source, and then there is a gift of backflow given back, and then there is a gift of backflow return, and a constant give and take of energy between a living God source and a living matrix. This is the spiral that feeds that. And it has a direct relationship with its center, the first creation point, always, whether it's spiraling forward or whether it's spiraling counterclockwise the other way to form the other half of the flame on the Adore side, right? When you put those two together, what this one is actually meant to do is tap into the natural creation point, but down in this space, right, down where the spiral is down here a little bit. It's actually off angle on this one, but it taps into this and it starts to feed off of it. So when you put the two together, you have a big difference between the natural crystal spiral, right, which would be this one. It starts out smaller, right? And then it gets bigger as the quantum builds by the natural ratios inherent to the Chris code. This one starts out bigger because it's harnessing it. It's trying to harness it and eat it and get to a point where it can override it down here and actually cut its link and pull the energy in and capture that energy. So this whole thing is part of the Metatronic profile. We wanted that to be put out there because there are movements being made now to try to bring more of it to Europe again. And it's just, at least somebody here, should, out in Europe needs to really know the difference. And we haven't harped on this for a while, so we needed to get that in this particular class, because this particular workshop started where you could get the DVD to this no matter where you were and listen to it, be lost on some things if you didn't hear about Cathara, but you would be able to get a gist by listening to it enough. Plus it's also the most sophisticated material that's out there. So we told the story, and we live in America now. We can't be everywhere at once. So at least there are people here that know what you do with that knowledge is up to you, but you've been entrusted with it, and hopefully it has helped you. And if it has, share it, spread the word. Okay, another one, please. Yeah, another one, please. I'm talking so fast I don't hear myself. Now this is just to show you one word that's been floating around there that we haven't shown the picture of in a while. This is called the Caduceus network. You know how we have our natural Navajo span gates that follow the natural Navajo core flows, right, in the planetary body? These monsters were part of the beast design. They are meant to, and they have been operating. They are holding the nets in place, the Nibiru and electrostatic transduction fields that run through and create the hibernation zones. Well, these are meant, and what they do is they have a certain set of implant networks that ride on our Illyrian chambers. There are 7 of these that attempt to control, well, 6 of them. These run through the core and control the one on its opposite vector as well, but only on the Ettore side. It attempts to make a false creation creation, actually, where it attempts to polarize energy to pretend it has an elemental adjugate, which it doesn't. It has what's called an elemental subjugate. And it's by reversing the natural Atori currents here that it creates a false Adori current and a false memory matrix and a false history and all of the other falsities that go with this. And this is being fed by the broadcast system of the Procyon black hole, the center of the Milky Way. But these are what they're doing is they're taking what would be natural currents from the Illyrian flows and they're polarizing them and twisting them. This is where you get the caduceus. It also has wings. It is the symbol that's used all over as the sign for healthcare and medicine and pharmaceuticals and all of that thing. Oh, brother. It is what is holding the DNA mess in. There are 6 of these aligned with 6 of the Illyrian chambers, controlling 6 of the energies of the Illyrian chambers. These are actually, they also have the 3 crosses. Story of Christ, yes, crucifixion of the Christ, indeed, because up here in the natural gates, you would have the Christ star body, right? There's a Christ star crystal capsule in the shape of a natural gate, if you would see it. And there are the 3 crosses. And it's unfortunately, it's not the thieves that are on the crosses. Because the crosses are part of the networks that actually circulate energy in fields around the planet, creating artificial magnetic grids and things. That's what planes fly by and boats navigate by and all those kind of things in these days. Yeah, and it also is what creates what we call electricity. What we have as electricity here. Electricity is natural and comes from source, but not the way it is used here. It is an artificial electrical generator that sucks energy off other things and from the core. There are 6 of those, and there is one large one. And the one large one runs through where our rod should be, but not at the same angle that our rod should be. They shut down the natural rod. When I say rod, for those of you who don't know, we have a vertical current that is a staff, and we have a horizontal current that is a rod. We also have another rod that's supposed to come this way. Well, they shut down the natural rod. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. I bet they comfort them. They shut this one down. And they took this one that is our natural vector projection line, and they twisted it. So we're literally, where our spirit body should be behind us, it literally twisted it at an angle like this. We're actually facing our past instead of our future. We're turned in on ourselves as far as our progression and our time vector. It means you can't do the natural adjugate bonding. So all of this is coming from these. Now when these fully activate, which they tried to do recently, and fortunately that was blocked, these 2 heads of the snake here, they actually uncurl and become one. And it opens up all the way up and grabs the top. See that thing that looks like a halo? That is part of the natural Illyrian chambers, Navajo flows. So it actually opens up and grabs that, and that's when it becomes an Ankh. And that's when it becomes a very, very powerful machine. And what the power of the machine was meant to do was they wanted to activate the 6 of these, get enough power sucked from the Illyrian chambers under the artificial reverse currents, and then use it to activate the big Ankh that ran through the center rod, because they wanted to go in for the final kill, which would have caused the nets to first start to roll and then start to spin. And they were going to spin this light field, the rest of it that was trapped in the nets, directly into the hibernation zones with them. And they were going to do that within the last few months. And there were things that our beloveds have been doing to prevent that, and we have been assisting them in Chandra shields, like large geometrical ones. Well, actually not too large. They're the tribes classes, in order to prevent this. And we always explain to people what the tribe thing is about and what we're supposed to be doing this time, and you can participate or not. You don't have to. There's no obligation. But this has been there is an invisible war taking place. Hopefully it will stay at least invisible, because it's going to get ugly if the fallen angelic groups, there's 2 main ones, we refer to them as the green dragons and the red dragons. They're fighting with each other still for control here. And it could get into the World War III drama very easily. That's on both of their agendas. And we could also hit Earth changes very easily. With all of the mess that's flying here, it isn't pretty. But they said because of the fact that recent things have happened. First, the beginning opening of the Hall of Records. This started with Virginia Beach. This has given us a progressive, let's say, lease on finite life down here, where it's not 3-day evac. Grab what you can and run. We have still the 223 years, as long as things can be kept stable. And we're going to work the Christ agenda to the best of our ability. You're welcome to join us if that's what you like to do, and you're still listening, so I have a feeling you might. And and the people that are the very, very ancient ones, that were the guardians here, that were pure Aquari at the time, when they were the keepers of the crystal core, I would imagine Some of this will ring a bell. You might start getting dreams, by the way, that remind you of certain things and what the mission was and what you did before, because you'll probably be doing an extension of whatever your job was before, because right now they're not sending in new trainees. They're sending in people who already have the expertise in certain grid mechanics and certain abilities. Me, I must have had a big mouth because they have me talking. Right? You got the grid master there. That's pretty obvious, but no, I'm the one that babbles. Hey, whatever. I remember teaching Ascension in various places. At least I laugh now. In Egypt, I had a problem with that, and I kicked a lot of people out for being silly and not very nice. Like, get out of my Ascension class, get away from my gate. Right? So I'm much more tame now than I was in Egypt when I was Anki. Anyway, that's a different part of me that's there now, but I'm this part of me here, and I'm sweeter. At least I try. At least I try. I don't know if I succeed. Anyway, this is the Caduceus network. They have not succeeded in getting the rod activated because they, got into some competition. The Reds tried to activate it because they're actually the dominant force on the planet at the moment, the Red Dragon groups, and the Greens tried to stop them and interfaced it. The Greens actually got it activated first under their codes, reversed to what it's supposed to spin at, which means it was going to roll the hibernation zones into us. Oh, joy! Talk about massive ET invasion. Where's Atlantis? It's not rising from the ocean, it's falling from the sky. Right? That would have been devastating here, too. Either of those rolls would create a total mess on this planet, or on their version of this planet, because you're rolling one light field quickly into another. It would create a pole shift on whichever one was receiving anyway. So it was an attempt to actually get rid of all of us because the hibernation zone people weren't winning. And they realized it wasn't working, and humans were becoming, particularly Ascension humans that really meant it, were becoming a nuisance. So they attempted to activate it. The Greens got a hold of it. The Greens were going to lose it. And rather than, even though the Greens don't like to work with the Christs either, they handed over their control on the Nibiru and Datic crystal temples to the Christ councils of the Salicera system because they were going to lose it anyway, and they were going to get eaten alive if they got rolled in there. So they decided, at least, if they couldn't win, we would be better ones to deal with than the Reds would, who would really make their remaining lives miserable. So this is why we have finally begun getting control over a certain portion. It is the smaller portion because the green side had the smaller portion of control over the crystal temple bases, the Nibiru and Datic crystal temple bases that the net fields are run by. But it is a start, and they have been secured now to a degree where our guys are holding that rod. Once it is activated, though, it can't be stopped, or it would actually cause implosion in the core, and that would wipe out the planet. So the Greens activated it. We didn't help them do that either, but we did agree to, all right, somebody was going to activate it anyway, and we weren't doing very well at stopping that process. So at least now it is harnessed, and its spin can be slowed so it doesn't do a quick roll on the nets. But eventually they will, and there's going to be some Earth changes here as we progress in that 223-year period. They will let us know when it's going to get more severe. They've already given flybys once, and that they confirmed were theirs, because I said in the Voyagers books, if there was ever where Earth changes were imminent, they would do flybys, or have one of the crews that are working on host contracts to do flybys, because they have spaceships that are closer. Our guys use Merkabas, not spaceships. And when we did Peru in what was it, May? Yeah, May of this year. We did Peru. We showed up on the 21st of May that evening. Well, we hadn't known until we got home, because somebody sent us the video, that in Lima, where we had showed up that evening, there had been this mass UFO sighting that was filmed on TV, and it was on the news broadcast. There had also been one in the same time in Chile, and where was the other place, honey? There's one other place. Do you remember? Mexico, right. So we got flybys here, are they ours, or just somebody else's? And our guy said, actually, they weren't theirs directly, but they asked them to do it because they were in close proximity, and they were working cooperatively with the Christ races, even though they weren't per se Christ races that did the flybys. And I think it was 55 days to when the Peru earthquake hit. I still keep going, how's Mexico doing down there? That kind of stuff. Well, yeah, I counted it quick, though. I don't know if I'm right, but I kind of went, is that 55? Because that is one of the Metatronic numbers when you go into it. And I just thought it was rather strange. So I'd have to recount exactly to see if it was 55 days, but I think it was. Anyway, this gives you a pretty good idea of what that is. Anybody want to flip Mylar so I don't have to wait until he comes back so I can keep going? Yeah. Anybody close? Thank you. He'll be right back, but I just want to keep rolling so I don't hang you up more than I already have. Let's see what he's doing. Good question. Yeah, I think that's the next one. Yeah, that should be it. It should be the small pile. Yeah. This is just to remind us of the crystal heart gates. This is how these are the base structures of one of the natural Navajo core gates that run on the Illyrian chambers, the natural ones. We are still able to activate them. The one we have been able to get activated was these, and they're called spanner gates because they span between our system over into the Aquiel system, and then a set of them spans from there over into the Andromeda system. So they're referred to as spanners because these are the natural pathway links that occur in the natural spiritual body, natural spirit body, and light bodies of natural organic crystic systems. So it's not something that somebody decided to draw them that way and just run energy that way. That is how the Chris code, they manifest through the processes inherent to the Chris codes. They're part of natural order. But they have all sorts of characteristics to them. All of these things, there won't be time to analyze right now, but these all connect into various platforms. These connect into the Aurora platforms that we talked about, the safe zones that are run through these, where they're literally safe zone fields where the ones in hibernation zones can't get you when you try to project anywhere. So when we do projections or anything, we are always using these safe zone systems that interface with the Aquiel matrix. Next one, please. And these are like tubes and chambers running down the middle, parts of the Illyrian chambers. Now, let me see the next one after that, just next to it for a minute. And I want to see where I was going with that, because I think I know, but I want to make sure. Yes, okay, put the other one back, please, just for a second. All right, this one was there for a reason. This one was there for a reason, just to remind us what we just did, what was go to the halls of Rishate, which are the 8-cell cluster that is at the center of the cosmic level of the Illuminadana cosmic body. So we have just gone and we have reset the encryption of who we are as we are right now, but the perfect imprint of that by bringing through the Iridanis, we have begun the process of setting enough of the divine blueprint back as it would be held in the organic Akashic record of the spiritual body. So we were able to set the record of our natural memory matrix back into the cosmic cycle. This will allow us to begin running frequencies that are coherent with the natural living life forces, and it will also make it where some of us will even be able to do Starfire between 2017 and 2051. Most of us won't. Most of us will have we have to do quite a bit of evolution and getting the kinks out of places where we don't even know we have them. That's what the Aquiel matrix is for, the Ascension Earth systems, and those are for that, to give us a longer period of evolution so we can get back to Starfire potential. But some will be able to go during the 2047, 2051 period, because that in Earth time is when the Andromeda, the whole Andromeda aqueous matrix is going through its Starfire, so its natural Adashi turnaround cycle. Next one, please. Oop, you're back. Okay. Now, this is going to get in pretty quickly, but this I wanted to show you, remind you, these were when we first introduced the proximities of where was Atlantis before it disappeared. It was a continent, and it went down in through here. These are in the Voyagers book, Voyagers Volume 2, 2nd edition, I think 1st edition as well. It's linked over into here, into Florida, but it also linked up into here, where actually Ireland and England were part of it. When we get over here, there is the last outpost of Lohas. Lohas, Atlantis, was the area up here where when this fell in the hibernation zone races through the Luciferian rebellion and the Luciferian conquest that was taking place during those periods, where they were progressively pulling holes in this, literally ripping it out. Ripping pieces of landmass out, where it was becoming like Swiss cheese. It was becoming a place with saltwater canals everywhere, and they were saltwater canals because they were ripping it to where ocean was coming in and eating the continent, and that's why it's gone. It ended up as island chains. Part of the base here was also treated in that way because first we had run from here and took as many of our races as we could, the angelic human races and any of the Christ races, to protect them because they were slaughtering us and trying to kill all of us because we had the gene codes that could run the stargates. And we all ran up here first. When they started to invade here, during periods of, I think, the Saxion invasions and those kind of things, which became the Saxons here, the Saxony, Knight Saxony, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of names. You'd be amazed how familiar they'd sound. as far as the race lines that came up from Atlantis and the Atlantean King Leviathan lines, which were the hybrid lines where they force hybridized certain angelic human strains with fallen angelic races in order to get themselves in human bodies here so they can do what they're doing right now. And, excuse me, right here is where, from seeding 1, where this was very different in the seeding 1 period. That was like before 5.5 million years ago. And there was different relationships between land and water in these areas at that time. And this is where that evac station was put, the first link to parallel Earth, so they could evac them over to here and then get them out through a natural, through the aqueal matrix, actually. And that went dormant when certain things happened on parallel Earth. They had to shut that end of it down so the others, the fallen angelics, didn't take it over and plug it into Procyon. So it had been shut down for a very long time. A part of it, they finally did plug into Procyon, and they created something. Next one, please, honey. Your next one, please. Oh, okay. I couldn't hear you. Okay, now these are the dates. This is like 50,000 BC to 28,000 BC to the present, right? So we still have that thing there, even though the continent is gone. There are land bumps underneath that are still pieces of what used to be the mainland of Nohasa, Atlantis. And we have little island bits that were still part of that. But over here, we still have what was the Crystal Christ Star Temple, which it's a particular gate that is running on it is running a Navajo pattern for some reason. They haven't explained exactly how what exactly it plugs into as far as its gate structure. Does it look like a regular spanner gate, which is the Navajo structure, or is it some kind we just don't know about yet? Whatever it is one of our guys, and they were able to get it activated, and that is why we were able to do certain things here, like from here be able to take that journey to straight through the safe passages to get into the cosmic Rishate, halls of Rishate, to reset our own imprint in there, to reset the imprint not just of ourselves, but of our solar system. And a lot of us have been all over the place in this Milky Way galaxy as far as we have other incarnations simultaneously here in different space-time frames. But we're bringing the codes back. So pieces of the Milky Way get put back in their natural order, and that will help them to be able to make it out too. What you have here is the key to healing something that was something artificial that was put in that's connected to the beast matrix. Another one, please. This. Now, I had to do a real quick one. They just gave me this like right before it's time to come down to them again. This here connects into Paris grids, connects into this area, whatever it is, in Belgium, and it connects into Amsterdam. What? Do they really? I didn't know that. I don't even know about that. That's as weird as when they're telling me how this, right, up here is where, Amsterdam is. This one is plugged in. Each one of these spots are plugged in to one of the 6 gates that we talked about on the fall matrix. This one happens to be the one in Amsterdam that's plugged directly into the Apollyon star in the fallen Yowie matrix over in the Wiesdeck system. So this would be the Apollyon. And they had told me that bit. What blew my mind was, and when I opened a map of the city here, there's some place that I don't know how to speak Dutch or how to read it, but it looked like a poly something, and I was like, oh, that's weird. That's just too weird. And it was gray on the map too. It was like the other parts of the map were colored, and they for some reason had this little area as gray, and I just thought, waking dream, the Apollo quarter. Okay, is that what that means? I just thought it was very odd, right? I have little weird waking dream feedback like this sometimes, where sometimes it's direct. They haven't said that that's where the direct link is. I don't even want to go there because I don't want to worry people, because we don't have to worry anyway, because this was what was just disengaged, and this was connected in. This held in a grid, the 666 grid, but this grid is huge. It connects into the 6th gate that is Apollyon. It connects into the 6th gate that is Procyon, I believe, and that is the This one is connected into the fallen Procyon, and this one is connected into the fallen part of Sirius B, and they all have the 6 configuration. These guys are plugged into a massive network that runs through the Caduceus network all over the planet. It's called the Golden Serpent Network, and it's connected to not just the Beast technologies, but what are also called the Threshold technologies and the Borgia the Borgia wormhole time rip technologies. So this is like the big baddie on the planet. It takes the other technologies and actually uses them all together to make a very powerful one. And this literally is control spots for like the HARP machine, the aerial, whatever the heck it's supposed to do besides keep the nets running well over in Alaska. And it's all, they said there are literally millions of spots that controls the grids on, and they were just beginning the process of activating it. But because we have this here, they cornered part of it where they actually they shattered, by blasting, they shattered the shield of a part of the natural gate structure that we had in there, and they turned part of it around, but not the majority of it. There's still the majority of that shield, but it has had to lay dormant because of this. Well, now, because of the other gates that are opening, the full Aquiel matrix is opening because the host is fully activated because the rest is falling. They're going to be, what is being done and what just began, the first wave of which we just used to take a ride out and be able to recode ourselves back into the natural creation, is they're going to unplug this one, these two will still run, but they won't triangulate anymore, and it's going to shut down a whole bunch. Like it's almost like a rolling blackout on the 666 grid. I wonder if I just said something funny. I never thought of that. Just watch the news in like a few weeks and see what happens. Eek. But I didn't even think of that. It fell out of my mouth. Rolling blackout. What did I just say? I was thinking like blackout of the nasty 666 programmings running through the grid, and then I remember what you said about the computer.